Hi, everybody. This is Solomon Schmidt from History Bites. I'm very excited to be here today with William Moseley, who is a very popular actor. He played the role of Peter Pevensey in the three Chronicles of Narnia films, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, The Prince Caspian, and The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. He's appeared in many other movies and TV shows, and he's played a very important role in entertainment history. And I'm very excited to have him on the channel today. William, thank you very much for being on the History Bites YouTube channel.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, William, when and where were you born?
I was born in Gloucester Hospital, which is in Gloucestershire. It's a small county just outside of Oxfordshire, which is where C.S. Lewis taught for many years at Oxford University. They're actually, I think they're neighbouring counties. In fact, I think they are neighbouring counties. And so I was born there in the Cotswolds, and I was raised in the Cotswolds. I really only saw the city a couple of times up until the age of about 17. So very, very rural.
So you said you didn't get to the city when you were young. You've been to Oxford now, I assume?
I've been to Oxford several times, and yeah, a friend of mine, she went to Oxford University, Anna Popwell, who played Susan, and she actually studied at Magdalen College, where C.S. Lewis taught, which is, and I visited her there. So, yeah, I've been very fortunate that I had a kind of an insider's peek into the university. And I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but there's a library called the, I don't remember the exact name, I think it's the Bodleian, is that correct?
Yeah,
it's called
Bodleian. Yeah.
The Bodleian Library, and it's one of the largest in the world. I think they have a copy of every single book, and it actually is under the city of Oxford, and it and the library itself is basically it basically goes, there's the city above, and then underneath is an entire library. So literally millions and millions of books, and they have a copy of every single book ever written in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You know, William, a friend of mine, he passed away last year. I don't know if you've ever heard of Walter Hooper. He was C.S. Lewis's secretary, and he spent like 50 years editing Lewis's books. And one of them I actually got right here. This is the collected works of C.S. Lewis.
Wow.
Volume 3, and he edited these, I'm pretty sure, sitting at a table in the Bodleian. But I mean, it's 5,000 pages of letters. It's unbelievable.
Wow. Incredible.
He loved the first movie, by the way.
Thank you.
So William, you said your great grandfather fought in World War I. What was his name, and did he fight in any battles during the war?
Yeah, so I don't actually know the name of my great grandfather because my grandmother just passed away recently, in the last couple of years. So I didn't know his name, but I know he was Irish, and he fought in World War I. And he was, I don't know if you've seen the film War Horse, but he was one of those guys that rode the horses across the trenches, and in France against the Germans, and actually his horse was shot underneath him. So he actually was very fortunate to survive. And yeah, he was then in the trenches after that. And so yeah, he was very, very fortunate that he did live. Yeah.
And he was Irish. I mean, he may not have been far from where C.S. Lewis was.
Exactly.
Maybe. Well, and your grandfather's fought in World War II. Is that right?
That is correct. My mother's father was a part of the parachuting regiment.
Oh yeah.
And he was stationed in actually, I think towards the end of the war he was stationed in Dresden, and they had to keep Dresden under control from rebellion. As you know, people didn't like having British rule at that point. You know, especially when the Allied powers won the war. You know, there was like almost a security service that went in to keep the city kind of on a lockdown. My mother's grandfather was part of that, and he was part of the war effort in general. And my father's father, who actually died this year, I'm sorry to say, he actually was part of this incredible. He's actually written up in a book, because what happened was he he was a young man who was from a seaside town. He was offered to be an officer, to have officer training in the Navy, in the Fleet Air Arm, which is, obviously the planes that take off the boats. And so they were bombing the Japanese. And one night his plane, the engines failed on the way up, and he went straight down into the sea. And the two pilots ejected, but he was doing the ordnance, and so he couldn't eject, and he was trapped. And he had to break the glass and swim to the surface. And actually, an American ship was passing by, and it was at night. And they luckily had a searchlight, and they saw him, and he was almost drowned. And so they saved him, and they took him to Australia. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you know the name of his book?
I think it's something called In the Goldfish Bowl, because it's about several other Navy Fleet Air Arm that went into the sea. Yeah, several other guys.
Wow, that's amazing. But he survived.
Yeah.
So William, when did you first become interested in acting? Was it a time you can remember, or did you just enjoy it while growing up?
First became interested in acting when I was about 10, and I didn't know what acting was really, and I had an audition for a BBC adaptation of a local book that was written about my area. And so I went up and auditioned, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. And basically, I decided I was going to be an actor then. And it was just very fortunate that the casting director for that first audition ended up casting Narnia. And so she asked me to audition for Narnia a few years later, and I did, and unfortunately that one worked out.
Wow. And what was her name? Was it Pippa Hall, or is that Pipa Hall? Right. Okay.
Pippa Hall. Yeah.
Okay. So that first movie, that was Cider with Rosie. Is that right?
Right. I was just an extra. Yeah.
Okay. And did you audition for other roles between the time you played in Cider with Rosie and the Narnia films? Did you try to get into any other films?
I did. I auditioned for a lot of different things. Like they were doing like a global casting for Harry Potter at the time. And I auditioned for that. They were doing lots of auditions I did lots of auditions for lots of different things. Some were just commercials, some were radio plays, all kinds of different things. So I was fortunate that I got that one. Yeah.
Who did you want to be in Harry Potter?
I didn't know really. I mean, I auditioned to play Harry, I guess, but I'm so different from him that I don't think it was ever going to work.
Well, with that hair now that your hair's a different color, maybe you could have pulled the Harry Potter part off.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? When did you first become familiar with C.S. Lewis's work?
I became familiar with C.S. Lewis's work when I was about 10, and I used to listen to The Silver Chair on an audiobook at night before I went to bed. So that was something that I really actually did enjoy. I used to love listening to that book, and I know now that that's the next story they're going to make as a film. Netflix have picked it up, and they've got a script, and they're just waiting to put it into production. Obviously, my character isn't in that book, so I wouldn't be a part of that film. But sure. I'm excited to see what they do with it, because I think it's either my favorite or second favorite story.
Yeah. I find a lot of people love that one, and a lot of people I think love Puddleglum.
Puddleglum, that's right. Yeah.
And I was told once that Puddleglum was modeled after a guy named Fred Paxford, who was C.S. Lewis's gardener, and he was a real like he would just see the worst in a situation. Like C.S. Lewis had never flown in an airplane before, and I think it was 1960, he was going to Greece, and C.S. Lewis and his wife are getting in the car to go to the airport, and this guy Paxford, he comes out and he leans into the car and he says, Mr. Lewis, I just heard a plane went down over the Mediterranean, so you be careful. And C.S. Lewis was like, and on that note, we left.
Exactly.
Okay, so how did you get the role of Peter Pevensey in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? I know you mentioned that casting director, but how did you do it? Did you go to a place to audition? Was there a lot of boys with you? But how did that work?
So basically, I was asked to go out for a reading, or just actually, it wasn't even a reading. It was just a meeting with the director and a few other kids. And they just put us all together, like as almost as a family. Like there was a young boy there was a young girl and a even younger girl, and we played games. And actually the first person I met at that interview was Anna Popwell. And so we instantly kind of connected and had some fun. And I remember Anna beating me at every game that we played. They were word games. And so I think the director found that funny. He liked that. And so he kind of called us back for another one, put us with some other kids. And then by the third audition, I think we were then reading lines. And then the fourth one, we were getting narrowed down. We started reading some more lines, reading the same scenes, but more. And then I got 5 scenes to read for a screen test. And that was against one other person. One of the actor was there. And so I read those lines and I prepared that with an acting coach. And then I did the audition.
Wow. And how old were you when you got the role?
17, and I started auditioning for when I was 15, so it took a long time.
Okay, yeah. So that must have required a lot of patience.
Well, I was in school, so it was fine. I was in school at the time, and I was just with my friends and studying, and I was doing sports and stuff. So it was not a big deal. It was totally fine, and I knew the director. He was making Shrek at the time, so he was working on that movie. So it was all good. Yeah.
Wow. And so where'd you first travel to when you found out you were getting the role of Peter Pevensey? Where was the first filming location you went to for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
So our first filming location for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was Hobsonville Studios in Auckland in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. So we went and lived in New Zealand for about 7 months. But we had to prep for about a month before. We were practicing horse riding. We were working with an acting coach to develop our skills as actors. And we were kind of in and out of school as well. And so we did about a month of pre-prep, and then we started the shooting there. Yeah.
And did you miss your family while you were away in New Zealand, halfway around the world or whatever it is from the UK?
No, not really, because I always knew that they were there. I think, I'm from a very good family, so I always felt very secure that they'd always be there when I got back. So
good.
I was fortunate that I never really felt homesick.
And what other countries did you film in besides New Zealand for that first movie?
So the first movie we shot in the Czech Republic as well. We shot in Prague, which is where the water tank scene was shot, with the ice, when I put the sword into the ice.
Oh yeah.
And then we shot out into the this kind of snowy areas of, like, it was near Usti, which is kind of on the border of Dresden in Germany. So we actually and we shot there on the second movie as well.
Did you think about your grandfather when you were near Dresden? Did that ever?
Well, I didn't know that story until afterwards. But I did think about it now that I did think about it when he told me, actually. Because I went to see Dresden. I didn't know that Dresden was firebombed during the Second World War, which is quite famous. Hitler did, I mean, Churchill kind of did this revenge bombing of Dresden because it was a beautiful city and it was unnecessary, but he did it as a kind of a revenge, I guess. So they had to rebuild it from scratch.
Yeah, that's one of the most terrible parts of about these wars for me. Another city that I think was almost completely demolished was Warsaw, Poland. Like what you just described about Dresden, I think sounds like the exact same thing sort of happened to Warsaw. I mean, you wouldn't know it going there now, but I think in the first decade or two after the war, you would still see, ruined buildings that had been taken down. Sad.
Yeah, terrible, absolutely terrible.
And to turn from a ultra sad to something more lighthearted,
Yeah.
you were called the class clown of the Narnia cast. Can you share a funny memory you have from the film?
You know, something that always does make me laugh is I don't know how, but Georgie would always wind up Skander. I don't know how she would do it, but she'd wind him up very quickly. And I think she just called him a chicken, and then he'd get really annoyed, and then she would do these chicken noises, and that would annoy him even more. And she would just do it incessantly to the point where he really actually wanted to kill her. But I think it works really well for the film because constantly you felt like we were actually real siblings. And because she was winding up all the time, it was like having real siblings. You know, it was like we were a real little family. And funnily enough, we kind of still are. You know, Skander just turned 30, and we celebrated his 30th birthday at Georgie's flat. So fortunately, they've made up now.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I mean, in the early, it fits because in that first movie, you know, on screen, there's a lot of friction. Yeah, I when I watched the movie when I was little, I mean, I know this is cliche, but I couldn't stand Edmund. I always felt so bad for Lucy because she's just perfect, you know, in the first part of the movie, not trying to hurt anybody.
Yeah, well, I think he, you know, Edmund is a leader, you know, and he just happened to have an older brother who was a more kind of fearsome leader than him. And so he always felt like he was in his brother's shadow and had to follow his brother's lead when he was a leader himself. So you can understand that actually it was not always an easy position for him.
Sure. Yeah. I guess I'd never really, thought about it like that. He does sort of come to a leadership position though in
he does.
Prince Caspian. I guess more in Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. Never thought about it like that. So what were some of your favorite scenes to film in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Or is there one that stands out to you above any of the other ones?
I always liked doing the battle scenes. You know, doing the fight scene Tilda up on the mountain was great fun. Riding the horse across the battlefield was epic. And also doing the water tank scene where we had a full ton of water down a slide and it just kind of engulfed us. It was very cool. You know, when you can really do these things for real, it's always more fun than shooting it on like a green screen or something. So sure. I was really honored that, you know, that they gave me the opportunity and they actually let me do my own stunts. They let me do my own horse riding. They let me do all these things myself. Because obviously it's always a risk, especially on a big movie. It costs a lot of money to you know, to lose an actor. So they were very kind to let me do that.
Yeah, and I heard a story once on Lord of the Rings that the guy who played Aragorn, Viggo Mortensen, almost died filming the. I think they were in the middle of filming the second movie, and in the back of the director's mind, it was like, you know, if he had actually died, it would have been sad, but you know, my movie would also be down the tubes. The trilogy would be over. So that's pretty staggering when you think about it like that. Did you read any of the Narnia books while you were filming the movies?
Did I read any of the Narnia books? Well, I obviously had read the first one. So sorry, I'm getting a bit of sunlight here. I obviously had read the first one while I was just before shooting and as prep for understanding the story and the movie. So that was great. And then the rest of them actually I didn't, just the ones I was in, which doesn't sound too due diligent, but it's you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are different. I think they have a different feel, just like Lord of the Rings has a different feel in the books. I have a friend, Tom Shippey. He's written a bunch of books on Tolkien, and people give him a hard time because he likes the Lord of the Rings movies, but you know, he's a scholar on the books, and he said, well, you have to judge the books by book standards and the movies by movie standards. You know, some people intertwine.
Exactly. And you know, you have to make them work for the screen as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
What did you do in your downtime while you were filming the movies? Were you busy most of the day, every day of the week?
Pretty much, yeah. We
Okay.
were shooting all the time. I think it was 145 days. We were in most of those days. So, really you only just go to the gym or something like that, or go and see a movie. But even that was like, we were still just prepping for the next scenes, prepping all the time. It's full on. Like once you're in there, you're in it. You are in. Like you are not. There's no going back. And you have to fully commit and fully be present the whole time. So yeah, we went out for dinner a few times. We got to do a few fun things like that. Like Andrew, the director, organized for us to go and meet some lions. At the lion reserve, which was really cool. Tigers, which was quite fun. And and on the second movie, they organized for us to like go paintballing, I think, which was quite fun. So that was fun. But basically, you're just kind of like in it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did hear. Was it right that you bungee jumped off the Auckland Tower? Is that right?
That one I did do, and actually, on the second movie we did the Queenstown bungee jump, which is really high, which is fun.
Okay.
Gandhi did that with cool.
Did the director know about that, or was that?
I don't actually. I think the producer knew about it because his son did it.
Okay.
So they couldn't really stop me after that. Once his son had done it, they couldn't really stop me.
Okay. Yeah, I could see the director sort of having a heart attack when he found out about that. Okay, so back to the battle scenes. Can you describe what it was like filming that fight scene between you and the White Witch? Because I think that's a favorite for a lot of people. A lot of people I talk to, they love that scene in the movie. So what was it like filming that?
Yeah, so that was great. With Tilda and I prepped that for several months before with our stunt coordinator, Alan Poppleton. And Alan taught me what to do. And then I just followed his steps. It's much like doing a dance, you go one way, you go another way, you go another way, you go another way, you go another way. And it kind of all just works like that. You know when to roll, you know when to move. I think Tilda had quite a hard time, actually, much harder than I did, because she had to be in like high shoes, I think, if I remember right. And she had 2 swords, so she did really well. Actually, it was not easy. But I remember the moment when we decided that we're going to do this shot where the 2 swords go like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know that shot was going to be in it, but I remember seeing it on the camera and thinking it was a really amazing image. So that was Don McAlpine, the DP that thought of that. So
yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that, William, because I grew up making these home movies with my siblings and friends of ours, and they were just medieval movies, Robin Hood, King Arthur. We made our own stories, but I remember we bought these like 2 plastic swords. They're pretty big, but they were plastic. And I remember during one of these fight scenes, in the back of my mind, we were making this movie, and I thought, oh, we can have these swords cross and have his head right in between, right, like in the Narnia movie. And we tried to do it. Of course, it didn't look professional at all, but we thought it was cool.
Oh, that's still cool. It's still cool. I think good directors and good filmmakers and good artists are notorious for copying other people's work. I'm sure that moment got copied from somewhere else, and someone else copied from somewhere else, and everything is, slightly taken from somewhere else, but you just make it your own. So, the next one you make it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, like, if you ever do make another movie, what influences you use there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we've done a few. Was your sword heavy? No, it was light. It was made of aluminum, aluminium, as we say over here, but it was very light. And the actual steel one was quite heavy for 7:17, but no, it was fine. It was fine. Okay. And this one, I was really interested to know, did you actually ride a horse at full gallop during the battle scene? Absolutely. And it was bareback, and I had no vision, and I couldn't really control the horse because the glove that they gave me didn't bend properly. The leather didn't bend. It was like stuck, so I couldn't really control the horse. But luckily the horse was fine. Bareback. So how many weeks did you have to train to, or months did you have to train to, be able to do that. I've ridden a horse, but like at a walking pace, and even then it starts to trot, and I bounce up and down, and I'm like I'm all over the place.
4 months or 5 months of training. Yeah, yeah. You can do it. You just have to get the right people to train you. Anyone can do it.
Sure.
You just have to be dedicated, and you'll figure it out. It's easy. It's easy.
Well, I'm sure to some people it's easier. You seem to be pretty physically talented. How many takes did you do for that line for Narnia and for Aslan? Was that a one take wonder, or did you do a lot for that?
That was only maybe 1 or 2 takes.
Okay.
But there was a whole battle speech that I was meant to say that I had memorized, and just on the day, the director and his assistant actually thought, instead of saying that whole speech, maybe we just say those 4 words or 5 words, and I just said, okay, that's fine. And so they didn't want me to do the speech; they just wanted me to say those 4 words, 5 words. So I just said them, and then we just shot it, and it was fine. And somehow that became like somewhat of an iconic phrase now people know, which is cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, well, this sometimes less is more. I hope you didn't spend too much time memorizing that battle speech.
Well, I did have to memorize it really well because it was part of my audition. It was part of my screen test. Yeah, so I had to do my screen test, and I remember doing my screen test.
Okay.
So yeah, that was still cool.
Interesting. Did you pick up on any of the religious themes C.S. Lewis wove into the story of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Like while you were filming, did you ever? Because you said you read the book. Did you pick up on any of those literary religious themes he put into the story?
No, but I was very aware that it was a spiritual story. So I think I don't think Andrew wanted to make a religious film, but certainly wanted to make a spiritual film, and I think that's where the stories have connected with people across the world, and and I think that the spiritualism is kind of the core of the story and core of the meaning of the film, and that's what is beautiful about it in a way, and I think that it does have a moral compass, and it does have a spiritualism to it, and it was made for the right reasons. So all of that I think does play into the success of the film.
Of course. Yeah, and I mean all that too, and I just heard someone once say about Lord of the Rings, and I think it could be said of Narnia. He got to the end of describing, why you should read Lord of the Rings, why you should watch the movies. And he said, it's just a good story. I mean, I think the same could be said of Narnia. These 4 little kids who take on a seemingly, insurmountably evil witch who has power, and Aslan, who's sort of like, I mean, even though he's an animal, it's so interesting. You read these letters that these kids wrote to C.S. Lewis, and it's like Aslan is more real than their parents. Or their siblings, and it's really interesting to see it that way. But and you mentioned the themes, you mentioned the movie's popularity. Did you expect it to be as popular as it was?
Didn't know what it was going to be like. I had no idea. Sure. I had no idea the scope of the film. I had no idea even how big the movie was when I was making it. I'd never made a movie before, so I didn't have anything to compare it to. I knew it was an opportunity for me to do something with my life, which was good. But once it came out and it was a success, I was over the moon. Really, I was just happy that people liked it. And people seemed to enjoy watching it, and it took off in a lot of different countries. And I was really, really happy.
Did you do any schoolwork while you were filming that first movie?
I did. I was studying Wuthering Heights for English at the time, which I remember doing. And I was also studying Othello, which was interesting. And I tried to keep up my schoolwork, but because I was over the age of 16, they didn't have to have me in school, so I kind of didn't want to go to school. Yeah. But I ended up still going back for an extra year of studies. And I went to what we call a sixth form college here in the UK, and I went there for a year and picked up my studies and got my A levels, and so I'm all good with that.
Did people treat you differently when you came back from the movie? I mean, did people home know where you had been? I mean, did your classmates treat you differently once you got back to the UK?
Well, I went to a whole different school than I was originally at. And
Okay,
so I kind of had to fit into that school, and I had to kind of fit in with those people. And, like I had to kind of like make it work with them. And the school I changed to, they were incredibly bright kids. Like these were kids that were going on to Oxford and Cambridge, and I felt like I had to work really hard to like keep up with that, like I had to study really hard just to like keep up with these kids. So actually I felt like I had to fit in with them instead of them fitting in with me, which was very, very good for me. And their sports teams were a lot better than what I was used to as well. They had a much, much better sports team. Like I was like, so I played on the first team for football, soccer when I was at school.
sure. Yeah.
And when I played on the first team of their school, I was kind of stunned by how good they were. So, in every department I had to like pick my heels up.
Sure. I'll bet they couldn't ride a horse at full gallop bareback, though.
Oh,
You probably
maybe,
had that to hold over
maybe
your
not.
head.
Maybe not. Maybe not. That is true.
Sure. So when did you find out that Prince Caspian was going to be made?
I found out pretty soon afterwards.
Okay.
As soon as the film seemed to be doing well over Christmas, then I think they greenlit Prince Caspian. So that was actually while I was still in school.
Okay. And how old were you when you filmed for Prince Caspian?
I was 19 and I turned 20 during the shooting. We started shooting in January, we finished in August or September. And so I think it was August. And so I turned in April, I turned 20. I remember we were on a night shoot, and it was right around the time I actually did a pretty crazy horse stunt in that film as well. So that was fun. It was great.
Awesome. And did you know Ben Barnes, who played Prince Caspian, before you worked together on the movie?
No, I didn't. And I was very fortunate that I got to work with Ben because, he'd already, at the age of 26, had already had led a whole bunch of films and theatre shows, and he was a very well-established actor himself. And so I was excited to work with him because I was excited to learn from him, and I was interested to see what he would bring to Prince Caspian.
And was there any friction offset like there was on screen for a good part of the movie?
No, I think we were very fortunate in the fact that we both had a lot on our plate. Both had a lot physically to do, a lot emotionally to do. We had long days, so really you just have to pull together. Like when you've got like a massive fight scene to do, and then you've got a scene after that, and then you've got the next day the same thing, the next day the same thing. It's a lot, and you have to be completely committed and completely bonded as a team in order to make it work. So we're very fortunate that we did get on. We still get on really well now, and I'm very grateful that he played Prince Caspian out of everybody.
That's great. That's great to hear. I mean, I've heard, I'm sure you have, and maybe you've worked on other movies since Narnia where you've had contentious interactions or relationship with other set members, but that's great that you had that on Narnia. Because
thank God. Yeah, exactly.
And what was your favorite location to film in Prince Caspian? Did you have one, or were they all great?
They were all amazing. I think my favorite location was the battle. Oh, in Prince Caspian. Yes. It would be in Slovenia. They actually moved a whole river at one point, which was kind of insane. Yeah. And they built a bridge across, and they blew the bridge up, and it was the most beautiful place to film. And if anyone ever gets a chance to go to Slovenia, it's absolutely stunning. So I really enjoyed going there.
And what was the hardest stunt you performed for Prince Caspian?
The hardest stunt I performed for Prince Caspian was the horse vault. So I had to chase a galloping horse, grab the saddle, kick a guy, land on the ground, and then get on the horse, all while the horse was just free galloping out of a castle. And it was quite full on. and I wanted to do it in one take, but I didn't get the kick perfect. I didn't get the land on the saddle perfect. So it's actually in 2 takes in the movie, but it's okay. Like I was happy with it. The director was happy with it. I did it in 7 takes, so it's fine. But yeah, it was a cool thing to shoot.
You know, you just don't think about that, or I didn't think about it when I watched the movie, that even for something like that, I mean, in the movie, it's what, 5 seconds, you watch it, and it's like, oh, in the viewer's mind, oh, Peter's off the screen. But you don't realize watching the movie how difficult even just something like that is to film, all the people that go into it, but all the work you had to do to get ready for it. And in the movie, it's just whoosh.
Yeah, I was nervous on the day because usually at night they wet the ground to make it look to make it glisten. You know, like in movies, I know whenever you watch a movie, the ground is always wet at night because it makes the ground look better. It makes the ground look like glistening.
Interesting.
And so they wet the ground, and I had these boots that didn't have any traction. And so when I was running towards it, I felt like I was slipping a little bit, so I couldn't get proper grip. But you know, it was fine. It worked, and the stunt coordinator was right because he wouldn't let me do more than 7 takes. And he was like, "I'm calling it. Like you're good." I was like, okay. So I just trusted him.
Sure. And what physical exercises did you do to be able to perform those stunts in Prince Caspian?
The physical exercise I did to perform those stunts. Well, I just worked with the horse trainers every day. I studied with them, and I worked hard with them, and I just kept on it and on it and on it. I enjoy it. So for me, it was just, you know, time well spent.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when you act in fight scenes, do you forget you're acting, or is every move choreographed?
Every single move is choreographed. Everything's choreographed. There's not a single moment that's not choreographed.
Okay.
It has to be in order for it to be safe.
Sure.
If you don't choreograph it, like terrible accidents can happen. I've heard about accidents that happen. So you have to choreograph everything. Everything you see in a film, you know, is choreographed. Every word people say, every movement, every camera angle, every light, every single thing is pre-planned. Because on the day, like, it costs so much money in order to like make a mistake that you can't afford it. And in another way, like the safety has to be completely organized so nothing bad happens.
Right.
And still, as we know recently, what happened on the set of Alec Baldwin, you know, accidents happen. Right?
Yeah, that's very sad. But on that note, what you were talking about, I know there have been some famous lines in movies that came about because of improvisation. Did you improv any lines in Narnia that are in the movie now?
No. I think I did a single one. I don't like to improvise. Actually, I think in the very beginning, when I come into the air raid shelter and I push Edmund in, I say, "You're so selfish. You know, you think, you know, why can't you do as you're told?" I think that you think you're so selfish. That bit, I think that was an improvisation line. I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I was reading in a behind the scenes book that the director Andrew Adamson watched you play that part, and I mean, you know that you would know this better than I would. I think it said you got it in 1 take, and they were just amazed because it came off so naturally. You interacting with Edmund. They said the big brother, little brother sort of vibe was just, it was there. You didn't have to act it.
Well, I have a younger brother.
Yeah, me too.
So we used to argue a fair bit, my brother and me. So I think it's got something to do with that. You tap into unconsciously or consciously, you tap into.
Right.
You tap like your real life. And that's what you do as an actor a lot. So I think it had something to do with that.
Of course, yeah. And you talk about these stunts. Were you ever hurt while filming Prince Caspian or The Lion, the
No,
Witch, and the Wardrobe?
no,
No.
no.
Okay.
I was all choreographed. It was all worked out. Everything was safe.
Okay. And
Oh, actually, I did fall down the stairs once, but I wasn't hurt. There's a scene when I'm in the courtyard, in the castle courtyard, and I'm fighting a guy, and I kick a guy, and then he rolls down. And actually, I fell down, but I just kept going.
Okay.
But it was okay. That's fine.
All right. I'm smiling. I thought of that scene from Narnia, but also a scene in the Two Towers in Lord of the Rings, where Legolas takes a shield and he slides down these stairs. And when you saw him sliding, I got this image in my mind of Legolas sliding down these stairs, and I'm thinking that's probably not the kind of sliding he's talking about.
No, definitely not.
Okay. And while you made these movies, how often were you on a physical set versus a green screen or a blue screen studio?
Most of the time I was on a physical set. Like,
okay.
Most of the time the set was built. Rarely will be on a green screen. Rarely. Maybe like that scene with the water tank. That was a green screen, like background. And then there's a moment when there's a green screen, but it's hard. Yeah, there's like a couple, but barely. I think that's kind of what helps to make the movie better, is that you feel the actors are really in the space.
Right. And you said the wash tank. Do you mean the scene where the river breaks in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Can you describe what it was like filming that fight scene with Miraz in Prince Caspian?
It was a cool scene. It took us 2 weeks to shoot that scene. And basically the stunt coordinator was going to get a guy in to do it. But because he'd been teaching me the whole thing, and he was just like, oh, I can do it. And so actually he did it with me. He did an amazing job. And when we did it together, Allen Poe and me shot that together. Yeah.
Awesome.
And they use a lot of camera tricks. They use a 360-degree dolly. They put that's basically a track that goes around you.
Sure.
They put 3 cameras on it, and then we fought in the middle, and then the camera was going around, and we were spinning and going around, and then they put a camera in the shield, which they punched me with, and then I would react, and it was cool. It was great.
Yeah. Well, I guess all that would have the effect, and I think it does in the movie, of you feel like you're right there.
Exactly.
In the midst of it, like you could almost feel them breathing on you.
Exactly.
So that was cool. And while filming Prince Caspian, you said this, I hope I'm not taking this experience and privilege for granted, because when it's done, I'll be wishing I were right back here in Narnia. Do you still wish that today?
Yeah, sure. If I got offered to go to another one, I'd be there right away.
Yeah.
I think there are no movies like making movies like that. And that, from my experience, having done now 20 other movies, on 40 episodes of TV, there's nothing like making a movie like that. Nothing like it. I don't care if you're like making an Oscar-winning, drama. Like, it's nothing like making movies like that. So 100%. I'm sure making Mission Impossible is fun. Making those kind of movies, like the action movies, is kind of like on like a level of that. But that's about it.
Oh, action. So you mean do you mean the fighting sort of aspect of it, or the epic, like, natural landscape aspect of it, or both?
Kind of both. Like the scale, it's like nothing is off limits when you make a movie like that. Nothing is intangible. Like, you can just do anything you want, and they make it happen, and they do it, and they make it for real. You do it, and you know it's going to be good. So that is an incredible feeling.
Yeah,
it's an incredible thing to make a film like that.
And I'm sure when you were a kid doing it, I mean, it just must have been like fun. Did you even really think about it like work, or was it just fun coming to do it every day?
It was just fun. It was mostly just like, it was just incredible. It's just like a privilege. It's like a privilege that you can't begin to imagine. And I'm forever grateful to the director, to Pippa Hall, the casting director, the producer, Mark Johnson, Douglas Gresham, C.S. Lewis' stepson, and C.S. Lewis for writing the books. Like that, was experience that no one can ever take away from you. It's like winning an Olympic gold or something. you have it forever, and you hope that you do something good like that again, but at least you have that, you know, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned C.S. Lewis. He told Walter Hooper once, right before he died, they were talking about what would happen to his books after he died, and Lewis said, "No one will remember me." Said there's a period where book sales, right after an author dies, his books sales rise, and then they peter out to nothing. And he said, "But that's, that's all right. I didn't write the books to be remembered." So it's really interesting that here today we're talking about it. I mean, you were a big part of the reason Lewis is probably twice as well known as he was 20 years ago. So
Well, I don't know if I am, but definitely the films and what they've done are for sure. Thank you for saying that.
yep, absolutely. So we're getting to the end here on these Narnia questions. Were there any negative experiences you had making the films?
No, I don't think so. The only negative thing I can think of is when I went to Japan and I was jet lagged. That's about it. Sitting I remember I was staying in the same hotel room as Bill Murray was in Lost in Translation, and
Okay.
I remember just sitting on the end of the bed, and I had to go do some questions with some Japanese reporters the next day, and I was so jet lagged, and I think I had food poisoning at some point.
Oh.
I went to New York and I got food poisoning on that same trip. But other than that, that's about it. I ate something bad and I got food poisoning and I was jet lagged. I mean, it's not exactly the worst things imaginable, but still, it's not having food poisoning. It's not great.
No, it's funny. Thankfully, I've not been jet lagged, but my dad and I were in, I don't know if you're familiar with Nepal, where Mount Everest is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got food poisoning in Nepal.
Oh my God.
It was hands down one of the worst experiences of my life. And I say it laughing now. I was in so much pain, and
yeah,
I ate meat. I made that mistake. They tell you when you get to or before Nepal, if you're not used to the meat there, it's one of the things you should avoid. But we had been there so long, we actually got caught during the COVID lockdown. We got there to trek to Everest Base Camp, and we got caught there right when they shut down the country for the second time. And so we had to sit and wait in our hotel room for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, I really wanted meat. And I ate pork sliders, pulled pork sliders.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Do you know, I feel like I've just had food poisoning recent, like in the last 24 hours. I think I ate something bad and I had like a kind of food. I've been really unwell. And when your body shuts down like that, it's the weirdest feeling because you kind of can't get it back. You're like, what do I do to get my body back? And you just kind of have to rest, But yeah, I totally feel for you, especially being stuck in Nepal. That sounds really hard work.
Yeah, well, I mean, in ordinary times it would have been different. But anyway, so you said you went to Japan. Was that for a film premiere?
That was for a premiere of the movie, yeah.
Prince Caspian?
Actually, yeah. But the first time I went there, I was more jet lagged, and I don't know. I just wasn't really ready for it. I didn't know really how I wasn't prepared for being jet lagged, but I wasn't, and I really suffered from it. But because in Japan, their talk shows are really intense. They, as you can imagine, they have people like shouting and jumping around, and they make you do things, and they have all these noises, and they have exploding lights everywhere. And when you're jet lagged, if you feel food poisoning, it's like crazy. It's like it really makes you feel completely out of it. But it was fun. It was great, and I love Japan. And I actually got to visit Kyoto, which is an incredible little town just outside of Tokyo, and they have it's like a little I think it was a shogun's temple that we went to. It was absolutely beautiful, and they really looked after us well. So no, there was nothing to complain about.
Well, that's good. And that must have been such an interesting experience, being able to travel to all those countries. Because I assume before the Narnia films, did you ever get out of the UK? Did you ever travel outside the UK?
Went to Spain and France, and that was about it.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So other than that, I'd never been really anywhere. that was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and Asia is a whole different animal. I mean, well, not a
Really,
whole different animal. It's just so different.
totally.
You know. Uh, okay, and where did you travel to film your cameo in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader? That 10 seconds where people got to see you and then you're gone.
I filmed that in Australia, on the Gold Coast, near Brisbane, and they have Warner Brothers Studios there, which was great. We filmed there, and it was fun, and I got to see the other cast members, which was great.
Yeah,
and it was a little bittersweet, like sort of stepping into their set and seeing them doing their job and seeing how well they're doing. I was really proud of them.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was like, wow, it's definitely feels like the time has passed for me, and that's always bittersweet. But I was just grateful to be there and to see them.
Well, and I go back to this, I'm listening to you and it just sounds fun. I mean, you must have come to Australia thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, but man, I want to stay. I mean, this would be fun.
Yeah.
Sort of.
You can't think like that. You have to just be like, no, I'm here to respectfully come in and respectfully leave. And, you must always be magnanimous and respect other people's space and their boundaries and their work. So I knew what I was doing, and I knew that I was going to be leaving very quickly. So I just said my hi and my bye.
Well, at least you got to do a little bit in it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what was your favorite? I mean, we talked about, it sounds like it would have been your least favorite premiere. What was your favorite premiere to attend for the 3 films?
The first one, I'll tell you a funny story. I was in the lift of the hotel going down to go to the premiere. And I don't know if you know him, but he's a quite famous actor. He played the professor. His name is Jim Broadbent.
Yes. Yeah.
He can live with me, and he was with his wife, and he said to his wife, well, when you have a royal premiere, you have a blue carpet. And he said to me, I've never been to a premiere. Well, he said to his wife, I've never been to a premiere with a blue carpet. And I turned to him and I said, I've never been to a premiere before. And he looked at me like, you're going to be into something crazy, And he wasn't wrong. It was extraordinary, really extraordinary. And I can't really believe all that happened, to be honest. But yeah, I did enjoy that. We met Prince Charles there and Camilla, and it was a really extraordinary evening. It was at the Royal Albert Hall.
And is that in London?
And that's in London, yeah.
Okay. Never been to a premiere. Well, that would change. And you didn't you meet Queen Elizabeth after The Voyage of the Dawn Treader?
That's right, I did.
Okay.
In Leicester Square, we had a royal premiere again with Queen Elizabeth, and that was another extraordinary experience. I met the Duke of Edinburgh, which was also wonderful, and that was just another pinch me moment. And she's very down to earth. I liked her very much. I found her to be extremely polite, and she's I think there's this saying that's like, I think that the height of manners is to put other people at ease, and and she does that. She just puts you at ease right away. You don't feel her power or her that she's the Queen of England. She puts you right at ease. Sure. So I like that.
Well, I'm sure in her mind she must think like, of course, everyone has to work to accomplish things they did, but for all of us, to some extent, well, not to some extent, we can't control where we're born.
Right.
The situation, some of the situations we're put into. So, I mean, it must. I mean, she's just a regular person too, but just someone in a great position of power and authority. And I mean, by the way, when you said a lift a minute ago, did you mean an elevator?
That's what I meant.
For us Americans, because I always joke. I have a friend from Great Britain, Tom Shippey. He's an older gentleman, and I always joke with him. I'm like, you British people have to dumb it down for Americans, because I always get this vibe like he or some British people think that maybe Americans are of a slightly lower intelligence, but I think we just use different terminology.
No, I don't. I never thought Americans of a lower intelligence. In fact, I think they're of a higher intelligence. If I'm completely honest with you. I mean, if you look at the, you look at the heads of all the, top companies in the world that are making all the most interesting things that we're using day to day or we're watching day to day.
Yeah,
they're all Americans, and so I was very fortunate. I spent 10 years in America, so I got to learn about your culture, and I got to really experience America firsthand.
And where did you live? Didn't you live in LA? I think I read that.
Yeah, I lived in LA and New York for a little while, and I spent time in South Carolina, Oklahoma, New Mexico. I've been out to Wyoming. I've been out to Montana. I've been all over. Yeah, and I love America. I love America so much, and I love the way Americans think. There's a limitlessness to the American psyche, which I think is profoundly different to the rest of the world, where a lot of people feel that they're born into one culture, they're born into one one class system almost, whereas in America there is no class and there is no boundaries as to who you can possibly be. You can be president of the United States if you want.
Absolutely.
So I think that's an incredible part of the American psyche.
Absolutely. That was a great way you put it. I mean, I talk to people all the time. It's like, you look at these people like Abraham Lincoln, Barack Obama, they came from nothing, and they become the leader of the free world. And it happens in America. I'm not saying there aren't politicians who have done amazing things in Great Britain as well, but yeah, that's a great way you put it about America. And I got a real kick watching these videos you did of trying to master the American accent, because we here always think, me and my friends joke about doing this British accent. And then when the video said you were trying to master an American accent for one of those movies, I never thought about it like that. I think you did well. You sounded very well. You sounded American to me in the video I watched.
That's very kind. I just played an American in my last movie. I just played Edgar Allen Poe, and so I had to kind of find an 1830s, Eastern accent, which was actually kind of similar to a British accent. But I talked with the director about what kind of accent he envisioned for the character, and so we just created that for the film.
Awesome. And what is that movie called so people can look for it?
That movie is called Raven's Hollow, and it's going to be on Shudder, which is a like a scary movie kind of streaming service.
Okay.
It's going to be I think it's going to be a very good film. It's beautifully shot, and it's gothic horror, and I'm excited to see what audiences think of it. We just finished it a week ago, so it was a very intensive shoot, but I believe it's going to be a beautiful film. Awesome. And when is it coming out on Shudder? In April. In April it will come out. April. Okay. And for everyone who's watching the video, there'll be a link underneath this video to Shudder and to information if you want to learn more about William's movies and his other work he's done. And now that we've sort of talked about your experiences on Narnia, can you just tell us about some of what are some other movies or TV shows you did after Narnia besides the Edgar Allan Poe one? So I've been very fortunate that I've made a variety of films and TV. I worked on a TV show called The Royals for 4 years, which was E's first scripted drama, and I played the Crown Prince of England in a fictional British royal family. It's a fun show. It's quite soapy and poppy, but we shot it here in the UK and in America and around the world. It did very well. Elizabeth Hurley plays the Queen. She plays my mother. And then other than that, I made an action movie with Gary Oldman. I've done did a Little Mermaid film, which is on Netflix. but recently I made a film with Mel Gibson in Paris,
Yes,
an
yeah.
movie, which was quite fun. And then I just had a film premiere at the Venice Film Festival, which has Matt Dillon in it, and it's about it's an art film directed by this Iranian visual artist called Shireen Nashat, and it's called Land of Dreams, and it's about a young Census Bureau worker. She works for the census, and she tracks people's dreams as opposed to just tracking what their lives are about. The government now wants to know what their dreams are, and so the government is filing away people's dreams. And so it's a lot of vignettes. The film is a lot of vignettes, and I play a character who is kind of like a guardian angel, kind of like helps her along the way a little bit. So that was fun going to Venice, and the movie seems to be doing very well. I've been offered to go actually to Goa, which I think I'm going to do for the film festival in India.
Awesome.
Yeah, in about 2 weeks, so I'll be heading out there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you said to Goa?
Yeah, I'm going to be going to Goa.
I don't think I'm familiar with that city.
Goa in India. It's on the coast, so it's a pretty place. It's like very coastal. It'll be beautiful. But yeah,
that's awesome. And you're so prolific in those films you were talking about. But one of the things you said caught my attention. You said Mel Gibson. And I remember, I think I saw a video where you were talking about how when you were little, you loved Braveheart, and I love Braveheart. So I know this is a pretty vague question, but what was it like getting to meet Mel Gibson for the film project you were working on with him?
Well, it was an honor because two things. When I was doing the battle scenes, I think in the back of my mind, Braveheart was always there in Narnia. Like the Braveheart scenes were always there in the back of my mind. And then when I was, a child, I used to watch Lethal Weapon all the time. And so getting to meet Mel for me was like, it was in a way a milestone in my life. And that sounds really weird, but he to me epitomizes what an A-list movie star is. He's an A-list movie star. He's an A-list director. Apocalypto is one of my favorite films. Everything he's done, I've loved, and I know he's not everybody's cup of tea. Sure. I know he's not PC by any stretch of the imagination, but in terms of his work and in terms of what he's done with his life, I think there's no one else like him. I mean, to me, he's the pinnacle. How to write, direct, produce, star in a movie, and it to be successful and to do really well with it is a feat that not many people have ever achieved. And to make it iconic as well, right. Not just to be good, not just to be okay, but to make something iconic is extraordinary. And it takes so much work. Like it's an incredible amount of work. And so just to talk with him was a privilege.
Awesome. And I might have not heard you when you said it. What movie was that you did with him?
It's called On the Line. It's an action film that we just shot in Paris, and actually because the director's French, and we doubled it for LA. And I play really opposite Mel. We're in almost every scene together. So it was cool just to like learn from him, on set.
Awesome. And when is that one coming out?
I think it's coming out very soon, actually. I don't know. The director just sent me a secret trailer, so I have that, but I don't know exactly when it's coming out. But I think it's been bought by somebody, and I can't reveal who, but it's been bought by someone. Yeah.
Okay. And will that one be in theaters or on a streaming service online?
I think it'll probably be a streaming service.
Okay.
It's not a huge budget, but
sure.
But it's a good movie, yeah.
Okay. And one thing I wanted to focus on, or mention, can you tell the story of when you were struck by lightning during one of your film shoots?
Yeah. So I was in a scene. I had to put a letter in somebody's pocket, and there was a storm raging outside, and basically I guess what happened, the lightning hit the ground, forked out, and then hit the cables where the generator was, and it came through the cables, through the camera. I was in the camera, so it just really hit me. I took a real hit.
Yeah.
But the DP holding the camera, she actually was unconscious, and we were very fortunate that actually she was fine. She survived, but still, it was unbelievable, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're and that was the Silent Mountain movie you did, right?
Yeah, the Not So Silent Mountain, as some of my friends have called it.
Yeah. Now you can get that statistic out of the way. There's something we say in America, like you're more likely to be picked to do jury duty. You're as likely to be picked to do jury duty as to be struck by lightning.
Yeah.
So if you move back to America, I think you're pretty likely to be selected.
I would like to do jury duty. I really think I'm one of the people that enjoy doing it, because I'd like to learn about the case, and I'd like to see how it works. I think it'd be very interesting.
Well, there's still time.
Exactly.
I don't know if they've ever gotten volunteers to do jury duty, but maybe.
I would volunteer.
Hey, is there any fan encounter that sticks out in your mind that you had, whether a Narnia fan or another project, or someone who was a fan of another project you did? Is there any fan encounter that really sticks out to you?
Well, there's one that sticks out that makes me laugh when I think about it, because there's a friend of my mother's, and this boy, this friend of my mother's has a child, and he watched Narnia. He's only about 5 or 6, and he obviously believed it was real. And he came to my parents' house, and he was asking where I was, and I wasn't there at the time, and he kept saying, "Is he in the wardrobe? You have to go up to the wardrobe and get him out of the wardrobe." And my parents are just like, "No, he's not." And then when he met me, he thought I'd really been in Narnia, and he kept asking me all these questions about it. And so I just had to pretend that it was real. I had to just sort of tell this 6-year-old boy that, oh yeah, well, the beavers, The problem with them is that they don't eat proper food, so you get very hungry, when you're with the beavers. And the thing, I had to sort of just like go like this, because I couldn't tell him that it wasn't real. So I just kept, it was like being part of the Grizzlies, I kept telling him all these stories about Narnia and about the landscape and all these things. And actually moments like that are really, really sweet. And they're really actually, that's the gift, that you have. You're just like, it's just so cool, being able to like talk to a kid about a magical land that isn't real, that the kid's like totally into,
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah. Well, that story you said reminded me of something I heard. I don't know if you're familiar with Tom Brady. He plays.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Incredible.
Yes. But when he was young, it was about the time he had filmed the Narnia films, actually, when he had won his first Super Bowl or two. A friend of his told him, "Hey, look, you're the hot cookie right now. You're the one who can change a kid's life by calling him on the phone or by the way you interact with him." And of course, that hasn't changed for him. And I think it's going to be that same way with you. I think that I know you've done a lot of projects, and that I'm sure you'll continue to, but I really think Narnia is going to be a staple, a classic for a long time. I think it'll be right there with Lord of the Rings and with Harry Potter for as long as those series are around. So that must feel great knowing you can. I don't know if you still do have that impact, or if you still have people who come up to you who recognize you. Does that happen?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it does happen. I was always very grateful for it, really, and I always think I could do more, could do better, with that kind of thing, giving back. I think that's very powerful. And if ever I'm asked to do something, I always do it. I've been working recently with the WWF, which is the World Wildlife Federation and Federation, but they do incredible work for the environment, for the animals. They do incredible work across the planet, and obviously COP26, which is the big environmental meet right now in Glasgow with all the leaders of the world there. Right. They asked me to do a little thing for them and to go to their talk, which I did. And I actually would have liked to have gone to Glasgow this weekend, but I wasn't feeling very well, so I didn't go. But things like that, they can go a long way, and if you can just do a little bit, you can it can go a long way. And
Right.
So I always say yes whenever anybody asks me, and maybe I should be more proactive in doing things for like hospitals and things like that.
And what are some other charities you've done? Because I know you've done some work for hospitals, and I think I saw the Ronald McDonald Foundation too.
Yeah, I went to the Ronald McDonald House with Liam Neeson, who obviously voiced Aslan, and met some of the children there in New York, and I loved that. They, these are kids that really have terminal illnesses, some of them, and they're really going through a tough time. So I went there, and I would go there any time I can, in the day I can. I'll be very happy to. But it's obviously a lot for them to organize me even going, especially during a pandemic. I can't just sort of walk in. This year, I raised money for the Pied Piper Appeal, which is a charity in my local town that helps children with illnesses. And then I also help raise money for Sarah's Trust. So there's a couple of things that I've been working with. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great that you use your influence for other people's good.
Yeah.
And one last question on this last section here. Why do you think it's important for kids to read and watch the Chronicles of Narnia?
I think it's very important for children to read in general. First of all, pick up a book, get off your iPad, get off your phone, get off your computer, game, whatever it is, and read. And, I'm not a great reader. So, if you want to just listen to it on an audiobook, put it on calmly, like go into it. It kind of like works as a bit of a meditation, and it's good for your imagination. Rather than being fed somebody else's imagination, you're creating the world for yourself. And so it's very important that you read, whether you read Roald Dahl, you read Lord of the Rings, whether you read C.S. Lewis, whether you're a bit older and you read some of the classics like Thomas Hardy or Charles Dickens, or even Edgar Allan Poe. Whatever it is that you read, just try, even for 20 minutes is fine. And don't make it a chore. Like I said, audiobooks are great. They work just as well when you're in the car. Just put on an audiobook. If you're with your mum or your dad, just listen to the audiobook, put your headphones on, go for it. Specifically Narnia, I'm partial to. Harry Potter, I think, is also another great one to read. I'm partial to Narnia because I like the spiritual aspects of it, and I like that C.S. Lewis wrote a story with animals. I love animals, and I love swords, and I love medieval, and I love the world where anything's possible. So I love Narnia for that reason. But you sort through and find what's yours, and if you're from a different country, English isn't your first language, you can learn English very quickly from reading a book or listening to it in English. It's a very surefire way to pick up your vocabulary and to learn English that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was great. Thank you for that. So, William, what is your favorite meal?
Has to be an Indian curry. Chicken tikka, not any more chicken tikka masala since I'm vegan now, but a tikka masala. Has to be a tikka masala.
Interesting. What's your favorite book?
Favorite book really is Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. It's a beautiful story, and everybody should read that book. Someone said to me very interestingly recently about that book. They said, what that story tells you is that, and it's very topical for nowadays, is that beauty isn't always a blessing. Sometimes it's a curse. And in that story, it's a 200-year-old book. And that story, that is the moral of that story.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, everyone, you heard him. Check it out. Tess. Three. What is your favorite movie?
Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Now is my favorite movie. My dad asked me to watch it my dad's a cinematographer. He asked me to watch it when I was a child. Okay. So I shouldn't have really been watching it when I was 10, but I loved the movie. And that opening with that explosion, and I've been to Vietnam. I think it shows the atrocities of war. It shows what those guys, those young guys were literally picked out of the street, picked out of the fields, what they went through. Vittorio Storaro was the DP on it, and his use of light, absolutely incredible. And I don't think they'll ever make a war movie like that again on that kind of budget. So I also, even the editor has a book that is amazing called In the Blink of an Eye. It's like about that, it goes into that film. So to me, that film's like really the height of filmmaking. You know, obviously, like along Francis Ford Coppola made The Godfather, an incredible film. David Lean made Lawrence of Arabia, which is on a par. They're all on a par with each other. You know, Stanley Kubrick made The Shining. You know, these kind of movies that they all live in a kind of like an A world. Scorsese's Taxi Driver. You know, Sergio Leone's. Sorry, excuse me.
No problem.
Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah.
You know, all these kind of films, they live in a sphere of another world. You know, I think my favorite director right now, I just watched this film again recently, is Paul Thomas Anderson. Obviously Steven Spielberg's films are unbelievable as well.
Yep, definitely. Who's your favorite person from history?
My favorite person from history, I think what Alexander the Great did was unbelievable. To be so young and to have sort of conquered half of the civilized world by the time he was 28 or something is just unbelievable to think about. Although he was he was still a tyrant. He was not a good person necessarily.
Sure.
But what he did but what he did at such a young age is unbelievable.
Absolutely. And he was king, Alexander, but he wasn't high king.
That's right.
He got that over him.
I guess I got it.
And he wasn't the magnificent either. He was the great. He couldn't even make the magnificent.
That's right.
Okay. And what is your favorite hobby?
Surfing.
Okay.
But I think when I get out and surf, something like changes inside of me. You know, there's this feeling, there's a rush and energy. You feel the ocean, you feel nature, you feel the force of energy that it's like nothing else. And I recommend anybody who can go and surf. Just try it. And even if you don't want to stand up on the board, get a boogie board. Get like one of those ones that you can go like this with, you can go like that, just to feel it. It's a feeling, it's a vibe, you know. And like sometimes we'll be out there and there'll be dolphins or there'll be sea lions, or you know, people think there are going to be sharks. I surfed in California for 10 years. I never saw one shark, but I did see whales, I saw dolphins, I saw sea lions, I saw a lot of other surfers having a good time, and I highly, highly recommend it. To me, it's like a therapy, and actually being in England is one of the things I really miss. So yeah.
Well, that's really cool. You said I recommend anyone who can't do it. I was in California in July. We were off the coast of Santa Barbara, and my dad and I saw people surfing, and we thought, oh, let's go try surfing. And we were out there for about an hour, and I couldn't get up once. And I just remember I was pulling my board out of the water, and I think I was sort of mad. And here I am in beautiful California. I had gotten this salt water in my mouth, up in my nose. I hadn't gotten up once. I'm slipping and falling. And I got back on that beach, and I told my dad, I'm like, I am never surfing again. So I just don't think I have the natural ability to do it.
You do. You definitely do. It's just patience. It's like learning a language. If you think you're going to learn a language in an hour, you're not.
Sure.
Like imagine that surfing is a language, and imagine the amount of hours you have to put into a language, and imagine the amount of hours you have to put into surfing. I suppose, like if I was the equivalent of surfing in language, like I would be like very poorly speaking the other language, because I am not a great surfer. I can drop in, I can make a turn, and I can ride the wave out. But when you see the guys out in California, just like they're almost walking on water, you know, they make it look easy. So I'm not fluid like that, but I still love it.
Well, that's great. And again, William, thank you very much for coming on the History Bites YouTube channel. And thanks everybody for watching this interview. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with all your friends, and hit that subscribe button below this video so you can stay up to date with all the other videos on the History Bites YouTube channel. And until next time, everybody, go learn your history.
Go learn your history.
That's right.